Okay, we're back once again. It's Gerald coming right back at you here. She has returned to us actually very quickly, and it's very pleasant that she has because she is here and back to talk more about The Walking Dead because there is so much more to talk about when it comes to The Walking Dead. She is I guess, the gatekeeper of everything going on when it comes to the awesome Facebook group Talking the Dead 18 plus, and also as well, the Walking Dead fan base. You got to check out both those groups today on Facebook, especially when it comes to the Walking Dead fan base. And say that because there are over 50,000 more people just like you that are big TWD fans out there that are interact and have a lot of fun and talk about the show and all the characters, their opinions, and everything that made nature. In fact, both those groups do. So if you get a chance, that's Talking the Dead 18 plus and also the Walking Dead fan base. She is the curator for both those groups. It is my good friend, Daphne Matthew. Daphne, always great to have you back. We're here to talk about a lot of great
Great to be
stuff
back.
that's going on with The Walking Dead. So share the goods. Beta has arrived and arrived with a big bang.
Oh gosh, Beta. That was very interesting to see Beta show up this early. If anybody's out there and you follow the comics, Beta does not show up this early in the comics, but on the show, I guess they have their reasons because they're trying to. I'm not going to say they're going to minimize the Whisperer's story because it's so important, but they don't want it to be how should I backfire on them like All Out War did, where it lasted a whole season. Now, the Whisperers is going to carry over into season 10, but it was important, I guess, for the start of the Whisperer War for Beta to show up because he does do some very Beta is actually Alpha's second in command. And if you look at Sons of Anarchy, the guy who actually, Brian Hurst, the guy who is playing Beta is very well known for the Sons of Anarchy. He actually is as tall as he appears, which is very interesting because this is a big dude. This is not, somebody of average height. He is humongous. The guy is really tall. But the reason for Beta showing up, I guess, this early is because the Whisperer War actually hasn't started yet. The Whisperers have been seen, like we talked before, they are imperative to the storyline as far as getting the communities to get back together. Because if you look at as as you've seen on the show, the communities are fractured. But if you noticed in Sunday's episode, little Judith gave Michonne something to really think about, and she kind of changed her mind and decided to allow Alexandria to be represented in the fair at the Hilltop, which actually is very important to the last 4 episodes of this season. Getting back to the Whisperers, it was a very intense episode this week as Henry got captured, as people saw, because he's an idiot. He went looking for Lydia, and Beta captured him, and they were going to kill him until Daryl pulled one of their tricks out of the bag, and he actually rescued him by putting on walker skin. And he saved Henry from his fate for now. Henry doesn't seem to belong for the TWD universe. So, having said that, we saw some gruesome. We saw some. I'll say we saw some. I should say violence this week with Alpha and how she deals with her own people. And she actually decapitated one of her people who actually wanted to go against her. And it's funny because we were talking about it. There's been backlash because of the violence, because of it. It was actually pretty much shown her being decapitated with the wire. And it seems like there is a lot of backlash over it because it was a violent death. But we talked about it, and I've talked about it in the groups. This show was violence. This show was built on blood and gore. That is what people were looking, what made this show a hit in the beginning. Okay, yes, it's a very good story. It's a very great story, The Walking Dead as a series. It's awesome. But what got people interested in this show from the beginning, besides the story, was the walkers. Okay, was the violence. If you noticed over the seasons, with the exception of season 2, the highest rated seasons had the most deaths. Season 5 is still the highest rated season in all of The Walking Dead, and it had the most deaths. As far as human character deaths, there were 24 human character deaths throughout the whole season. So for there to be backlash about one violent death is really, really stumping me, because this is what this show was built on. Okay, a lot of people, this all started with season 7 with the deaths of Glenn and Abraham at the hands of Negan, because it was horrific. But if you read the comics, you knew this was going to happen. This was no surprise. I mean, there were hints of it before it even aired that this was going to bloody death. Now, I understand that people have children watching the show, and maybe they shouldn't have their young children
I don't
watching
think they
it.
should. I don't think they should. That's an issue I have right there. In fact, when you
Yeah,
see
people
that,
having their 2 and 3-year-old kids watching The Walking Dead and talking about their kids love the show.
when all I say is this: when you see that TVMA come up at the left corner of your screen, okay, that's the signal that you should have your kids not watching it. That's just my
Exactly.
personal thing. If you want to, that's
Exactly.
all. If they do, that's all on them. But if there's repercussions from having them watch that violence and
Right.
supporting those theories that they're out there, that violent video games, violent TV shows, that it does something or
Or
whatnot. Okay,
creating
that
violent children.
exactly,
Yeah,
creating violent children, then you're just perpetuating it by having them watch a TVMA show that's not meant for them. Um,
exactly.
be that as it may, it is still not a Disney cartoon that you're watching. This is supposed to be intended for mature adult audiences.
16
That's
and
what
up,
it's meant for.
actually. This
It's
show is meant for an audience of 16 and up. And even the composer himself, Bear McCreary, a couple of years ago wrote an op-ed about why children should not be watching this show. And, you can't tell people what to do with their children, but I grew up, and I'm sure you did, in a generation where, no, you would not be watching The Walking Dead if this happened 30 years ago. Absolutely, you're not watching this. And your parents would make sure you watch it. But unfortunately, our society today, we have a society where TV are the parents for a lot of kids. That parents drop their kids in front of the video games, in front of the TV, and let them look at whatever. But getting back to The Walking Dead and this intense death, I don't see where the backlash should be happening as big as it is, because, like I said, this show was built on violence. I mean,
well,
they
let's take a look at Negan. When Negan went and bashed the brains in of Glenn and Abraham, how is that different? When the
it's
governor
not.
did what he did to Herschel, how is that different? Is it
It's
because,
not. And
well, let me
see,
ask you this,
yeah,
and this goes on the theme of what we're talking about with Captain Marvel coming up here in a bit. Is it because it's a woman doing it? I'm gonna just
you
put that
know
out
what?
there.
You know what? I kind of thought about it. Maybe it is because, unfortunately, is that villains, women can't be serial killers, but there is evidence pointing that women can do as much horrific things as a male, and even capable of doing more. So it's kind of weird that, like I said, the backlash is coming back now. part of the decline in the ratings of The Walking Dead was the backlash over Negan killing Abraham and Glenn in the manner in which he did. Um, there was outrage over it because it was very violent, but it was supposed to be violent. This was the introduction of what was supposed to be one of the biggest villains in Walking Dead history. So it had to be big. It had to be huge. It had to be something that you wouldn't expect. And really, if you think about it, I mean, maybe because Glenn and Abraham were humans and not walkers, it was no different than Carol bashing in eggs with a crowbar when he died. So I really didn't get it. I mean, they've shown walkers getting their heads bashed, and they showed Rick ripping out a man's throat with his teeth. So I'm really like, what makes this any different? So, but what they did was AMC listened to the fans because, like I said, there was so much outrage over Glenn and Abraham, petitions and all that. So they kind of vanillaed this show. They cut down on the violent deaths, and I mean, really, if you think about it, even before Glenn and Abraham, the most brutal, I would say, human death on The Walking Dead was Noah. They showed him get ripped apart in a revolving door, and
I remember that.
Everybody that was brutal. I mean, and I joke about that because I've never seen another death like that. And if anybody knows the actor, he played on this show for many years because everybody hates Chris. And I used to make jokes about his death and say, what did he do to piss people off to get him killed like that on the show? But anyway, going back to this violence thing, there's been violence on the show. And like I said, after season 7, they toned down the violence. They gave a and the ratings declined in rapid fashion. If you had been on any Facebook group after those deaths of Glenn and Abraham, you would have seen the outcry for let's get back to the story of the walkers. Why are they doing so much story? What is this need for them to have all these backstories and all this storyline, and you rarely, and well, season 8 you did, the walkers came back, but after Glenn and Abraham died, you really didn't see walkers too much. So it was like, what is this? This is supposed to be The Walking Dead. So now we have another violent death, and some of the fans are going crazy again. I mean, it's like a double-edged sword. You're damned if you do, or if you're damned if you don't. If you show a violent death, you get backlash. If you give too much story, you're going to get backlash. Happened on Sunday is just a prelude to what's going to happen in the finale. And I would say if you really was taken aback by that, then maybe you shouldn't watch the last 4 episodes of this season, because it's not going to be tamed down. It's not going to be toned down. There are going to be, and Seth Gilliam, who plays Gabriel on The Walking Dead, even let it out that there are going to be major deaths coming. And I mean, he said a lot of them. So what are you going to do when the next 4 episodes play out and you see these deaths? Because they're not, if they follow the comics, and I hope they do, because I'm a big fan of the comics. That's what got me hooked to the show. If you're not ready for that, which is actually going to be the introduction to the Whisperer of War, I'm pretty sure the fair is going to happen in the
Are you still there, Daphne?
What actually starts the Whisperer War? If you are upset over a red shirt, and I call them red shirts because they're not main characters, getting decapitated, then you shouldn't look at the next 4 episodes because it's not better.
Once again, it is Daphne Matthew from the Talking the Dead, the Talking the Dead 18 plus, and also as well the Walking Dead fan base groups on Facebook. You got to check out both those awesome groups today. You just join up and you become part of the scene, part of the action, part of the conversation when it comes to the Walking Dead, where you can weigh in on your thoughts on if it's getting a little bit too violent for the Walking Dead, which I don't know. Seeing all the violence on that show over the course of the years, it looks like it's just par for the course to many, but to others, it's kind of over the top, even for The Walking Dead. So you can weigh in with your thoughts at one of those great Facebook groups that she goes ahead and moderates today. That is Talking the Dead 18 plus, and also as well the Walking Dead fan base. One last
So
thing.
I'm going to ask you a question because you said over the top. So one of the things we've been talking about in the last couple of days is what makes The Walking Dead any different from Game of Thrones?
Well, in many ways, there isn't. There is, as far as the type of human interaction, the type of relationships, because at the core of the show, it really gained a lot of momentum because people started to signify themselves with the main characters on there and see them established and felt a connection and felt real sadness and loss when there was one of those horrible deaths. Because when it comes to Game of Thrones and also as well the Walking Dead, the deaths are not exactly going to go ahead and be peaceful in the middle of the night. No, these are actual real harsh deaths that are in both those programs that happen to main
Right.
characters, and they're not pretty. And I guess it just shows a type of realism that a lot of people just connect themselves to. That's what's been the charm for them. The problem is, though, where The Walking Dead where the Game of Thrones has continued to do things right, The Walking Dead has continued to make mistakes that has cost it a great portion of its audience. I don't want to go into the numbers again because you and I have gone over the numbers
We're
before.
not gonna. No, we
Yeah.
won't talk about numbers because I did actually have a chance to look at the ratings. And the funny thing is like I said, unfortunately, as far as ratings, you can't measure any show by numbers anymore because there's just so many avenues in which to look at the show. And AMC actually has hurt themselves as far as ratings, as far as being able to gauge the numbers properly, because they actually offer this service called AMC, it is, where people actually pay to look at these episodes a day in advance. So, I mean, I'm not sure what their purpose was before, but I mean, if you have 5 million people looking at the episode when it airs, and then you have another 3 to 4 million people paying a service of AMC to look at an episode a day in advance. But the good news is that in the 16 to 49 age group, The Walking Dead is still the highest rated show. The Walking Dead is also the highest on demand show, and Rotten Tomatoes have said The Walking Dead is still the highest ranked show on TV today. So, I mean, I know that networks live and die but by their numbers, but like I said, there's so many avenues within the last, I'll say even 5 years, where people can look at these shows in different arenas in different ways where they can't actually gauge the numbers. I will say The Walking Dead is still highly talked about. But yeah, especially this season, the Ring, they are really enjoying the storyline more. Maybe they should have kicked Scott Gimple to the booted him up into the offices a couple of years ago, because it seems like there was a pattern of decline. Like I said, after season, it started showing after season 5 because they felt that season 6 it was too much time spent in it. And in season 7 there was too much time spent with going to war. And then season 8, of course, we had the actual war itself that lasted the never ending whole season war. So once, those things started playing out, unfortunately, the ratings did decline. But like I said, they really can't properly gauge numbers these days. Plenty of groups. There's actually a couple of groups that have higher numbers than the Walking Dead fan base that people are still active in. There is still a lot of chatter and buzz and excitement about the Walking Dead. Of course, when you manage a group with 60,000 members, and there are still those people out there that come in and troll the board and say they don't watch the show. That's a given. I mean, if you look at any of the other zombie shows that have come and gone, The Walking Dead, it's going into its 10th season. Fear the Walking Dead is going into its 5th season. Z Nation just got canceled, and that was as a result of some of what you see in The Walking Dead, where they vanillaized the show, they toned down the violence, they kind of went with too much story, and it it got so far off a track from what it was in the beginning that they just evidently canceled it this season. There was another show, iZombie. That show got canceled. So, as far as this genre, The Walking Dead is still the only show out there. I mean, they have Fear, but Fear has never been as popular as The Walking Dead. And there is for the Deadheads out there. There is actually going to be a second spinoff of The Walking Dead. Could happen this year, and it's actually going to delve into the zombie apocalypse as from other countries' perspectives. If you remember season 1, that CDC episode, they did speak about other countries such as China and France, and they are looking to do a spin-off going to happen next year. I thought when they were hinting that there was going to be a spinoff, is that they were going to actually do The Governor, but that's not happening yet. The Governor, as far as the Walking Dead show, was toned down. If you read the comics or if you read the 4 books on the Governor story, that man was worse than Negan, as well as he was as Alpha. So we got a toned down version of the Governor, and I was hoping that they would delve more into that and do a spinoff, but that's not happening yet. So we can continue with our Walking Dead discussion. I know I went off on a tangent, but I thought it was important.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Once again, like I said, it is Daphne Matthew from Talking the Dead 18 Plus and also the Walking Dead fan base. You got to check out both those great groups she moderates today on Facebook. One last thing I want to talk to you about, and that is this weekend, it is Captain Marvel coming to theaters. And I'll tell you what, it's obviously extending the Marvel Cinematic Universe one more time in the 21st movie in the line in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want to hear your thoughts on what's going on. I just want to hear your thoughts on Captain Marvel. What do you think this means as far as from a cultural standpoint? No, it's not the first female-driven superhero movie. Wonder Woman was such a big success 2 years ago, and before that, Catwoman with Halle Berry, and also as well Elektra with Jennifer Garner. Which, unfortunately, with both those movies, I think both those movies are not exactly the strong points as far as cinema is concerned, because they both failed as far as on a cultural, critical, and monetary, most importantly, level. So I want to hear your thoughts though now, because there's some big expectations with Captain Marvel, just like there was with Wonder Woman, and where that succeeded. What are your hopes for with Captain Marvel when it comes to its prospects going forward?
The interesting thing, and I have on my Marvel sweatshirt today. Yes, I do. I'm supporting Marvel. The interesting thing, you touched on Elektra, and before I go into Captain Marvel, I want to Catwoman. I just absolutely I abhorred it. It was a terrible movie in itself.
And I think
As
Halle
far as
Berry would
Elektra,
agree with you on that.
yeah, I think she was. I think it was poorly written. I think they tried to do something with Catwoman that comic book fans just hated, and it showed in the, as you said, in the numbers. As far as Elektra goes, Elektra was nearly 20 years ago, I do believe. Elektra, it wasn't a bad movie. It actually wasn't. I actually enjoyed it, but I think at the time the mindset for a female superhero. Now, the one thing, and I think Elektra and I know Wonder Woman is the DC universe, but as far as the way Marvel has been incorporating women into their storylines, is that they have done it they've done it on a subtle basis because when Black Widow came in, you really didn't expect Black Widow to show up, and then we have Black Widow, and now we have Captain Marvel. Now, Captain Marvel's an interesting character within itself because Captain Marvel is actually needed to complete or close the circle on the Avengers trilogy, or it's four movies. I'm sorry, because they split the Infinity War into two movies. Um, and Captain Marvel actually, if you notice, at the end of the credits, I mean, the very, very end, you had to sit through maybe 15 minutes of credits to see the final scene within the Infinity War is that Nick Fury was actually trying to reach Captain Marvel after the Avengers that Thanos chosen to erase were gone. Um, the thing with Captain Marvel is that she, and I'm gonna say she because this iteration of Captain Marvel is a woman. From a comic book perspective, there were five Captain Marvels. There were five different people that have were in the Marvel universe. And Captain Marvel for this particular movie, her story is being told because in May, the last Avenger movie, Endgame, is actually going to be released, and she is going to be the one who I will say saves on. They were made into dust piles and all that. I'm not going to give too much away on the last Avengers movie, but as far as Captain Marvel goes, from what I remember of her, she is one of the few, I'll say, characters or superheroes that actually is not outside of Thor. She's one of the few that's not of here. She was born here. She was raised here. She finds out about herself over the course of the movie, and basically, she has, I will say, maybe every superpower that the Avengers that one of the Avengers have. She does. She has all their superpowers to some extent. Um, and it's really, they did the movie well. It's going to be a great movie. I have not read any of the reviews. I know it. You can go see it tonight. I know there has been some backlash because, as I said, there are five Captain Marvels. That the first iteration is a woman. I don't see any issue with that. I mean, it could have been the man, it could have been a woman, it could have been whatever. People think that Marvel is actually taking the opportunity to make a quote unquote feminist movie. I don't see that. I just see it as a character. I think that It's fitting with the success of Wonder Woman. They have Dark Phoenix coming out this year. Um, they actually have a Black Widow movie in the making that I think it's fitting that this first iteration is a woman because it's putting strong women characters in the forefront now, as opposed to them being sidekicks or, yeah, sidekicks to the male superheroes. Black Widow was always part of the Avengers. She didn't stand out too much on her own. So basically, as far as the Marvel universe is concerned, it's time for them to have a strong female superhero that supposedly comes in and saves the day, so to speak. Like I said, I have not read the reviews on this movie, so I'm really not certain how it's going to play out. But I do know it is a strong story. Whatever happens in the movie is actually going to lead right into the last Avengers movie, and I think it has to be a good solid movie in order for the Marvel universe to continue because Captain America will no longer be in any movies. Iron Man will no longer be in any movies. A lot of these male characters that's been around for 15, I don't know, Iron Man first came out maybe 10 years ago. So those characters that built this universe are now leaving. So now they need somebody, I'll say, so to speak, to pick up the gauntlet and move the Marvel universe into the future. Now, if Captain Marvel doesn't work, we could have the same situation that they had with Spider-Man. Spider-Man started out very strong. The last movie with Tobey Maguire was a bomb. And then they tried to revamp it, and they had planned on doing 3 movies with Andrew Garfield, and the second one bombed. And now they reinvented it to some backlash as Spider-Man being a teenager. So now it's like, with the characters that built the franchise leaving, we have to have a strong introduction to Captain Marvel in order for it to continue. Else it's going to suffer the same fate as DC. That's my opinion on it.
That's a great opinion indeed. And I'm excited for Captain Marvel coming this weekend. I know a lot of other people are. I know you are. And I know it's going to
Oh,
set.
I'm definitely going to try to go see
How
it.
definitely. I know I am. That's for sure. And it's going to hopefully set a great example for women everywhere, young ladies. I know my girls are excited for it. I know a lot of other ladies and young women are out there as well, just trying to see that to the as far as in the forefront, a woman take that step to the forefront of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because as I've said before, and as I will say many times, not only is she here to go ahead and provide some help when it comes to Avengers Endgame that comes out in April. She's also there to set herself up as a major key cog in the Avengers going forward in the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yeah, I know a lot of people are also saying, as far as why an origin story right now crammed in the middle of 2 of the most important movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, it's not, like I said, it's not just for the fact that she's going to be set up to be a major player in an Endgame. This is for also down the road, because she is going to be something. She's going to be something special when it concerns the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the next 5 to 10 years. So people better get used to her being out in the forefront, because she's going to be
That's
there,
right.
and for some time to come. Well, like I said, it's been
And
great. Oh, go ahead.
no, 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 absolutely. No, it's fine. Like I said, with her, like you said, she is setting up the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was important to have her standalone story, origin story now before the Avengers Endgame came out, because she is the key to that final movie. So if people don't understand why they're doing it this way, it's all part of the plan to carry the Marvel Universe forward. It's not something they just decided haphazardly. This was planned well in advance that Captain Marvel would show up before the final Avengers movie because there's a reason for it. And you will see that reason come to fruition come April.
That
And
we
there you
will
have
indeed.
it.
Yep, that we will indeed. Once again, it is Daphne Matthew from Talking the Dead 18 Plus and also as well the Walking Dead fan base. You got to join both those awesome groups and hopefully talk nothing about good things about the Walking Dead, or even if they're there just to share your opinions on the Walking Dead. And don't go there just to troll and say you don't watch the show. That's just wasting everybody's time. You got to go there today and be part of the conversation. That's Talking the Dead 18 Plus and also as well the Walking Dead fan base. Daphne, it's just been great having you on the show again, sharing your thoughts on Captain Marvel and sharing your thoughts on the Whisperers. Just cannot wait to see what is going to happen to close out season 9 of The Walking Dead and where the series goes from there. And I know you and I will be talking more and more about it as we go down the road with The
Oh,
Walking Dead.
definitely. Definitely.
All right.
Everybody have a great day.
Thank you to you as well. And so great to have you part of the pop culture cosmos.